I wanna now put the shine the light on you, bro. For real, we're gonna go in now, and you know how I normally start all of this off. You know, just in essence, and then we'll flow. Is and there's already stuff that you've shared that I know that now we're gonna have to go into it and dig a bit deeper. But like for the benefit of the audience, people that will be tuning in, they might know who I am because they're channeling into my platform. But they're like, right, who's this next brother? Because I've just got brother after brother and sisters just coming through. And I'm like, well, some people might know who you are, and you know, in your area, but definitely my audience in the UK might not have a clue who you are. So for the benefit of the audience, just bro, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and however you seem fit, and then I'll just piggyback off the back of that one.
Okay, no problem. And I actually thought that we were going, so this is cool. Thank you. My name is Reggie. I run Oakland Hyphae, which is Oakland, California, based collective of mycology enthusiasts. And you know, mycology, if you're following Darren, you probably know what mycology is, but just basically mushrooms and plant medicine for us. Mycology is mushrooms, but mushrooms and plant medicine for us. And what we study is mycology and recreation, mycology and science, and mycology and spirituality. So how mushrooms specifically tie into all three of those things. What makes me unique is I'm the only person that's forward facing in the country, at least, that's doing this sort of work. You know, there's a lot of people doing it quietly, waiting for, you know, legislation to happen and for legislation to change. But since I'm in Oakland and it's decriminalized here and I'm not, you know, selling anything, you know, and nobody's consuming the samples, we destroy the samples after we test them. It's simply research and development. And so we're moving forward with it. I also am a consultant to grows internationally. I have contracts in Jamaica that I'm working on. I work in conjunction with the Mushroom Queen on her farm in Manchester, and I've worked with the largest mushroom growers in the world in Holland in my younger days. And so that's a little bit of background on me. I guess one other thing that is important to getting a good gauge on who I am as a person is when I wasn't working in the plant medicine world, I was working as a political operative or a community organizer. So I've worked with the daughter of Eric Garner as her political advisor, which was a blessing. I've worked with the Democrats, the National Party. I've worked with the New York State Democrats, Washington, D.C. I've worked with Color of Change, which is the largest online racial justice organization in the country. And I worked with, here in Oakland, I worked with the Black Organizing Project. We were organizing parents in schools to encourage the school district to hire more guidance counselors and push out the police from the school. So spend the money, spend the budget that they were spending on police on guidance counselors. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm pro-Black everything. A few years ago, I decided that I was going to take my tap shoes off and, you know, and chart my own trail. And so this is what got me here at this moment right here, talking with you.
Bro, appreciate the sharing, man. Well, I came across you by way of our mutual allies, you know what I'm saying, in the States, by way of the Detroit Entheogenic Conference. And then I've followed you on the Instagram, on the social media, and I saw the name in itself, you know, resonated. One, Oakland, because I'm a big fan of this music that was coming out of Oakland in the 90s in particular. I'm a Bay Area, you know, rap fan, you know, which is unusual here in the UK. It's primarily New York rap, but I was Bay Area and down south influenced highly with the music. So Old Town plays a big part in me and who I am and in my being. And then your hyphae, man, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, he's dealing with the mycology as well. That's like, that's my world. Those are my worlds, man. So, you know what I'm saying? But I want to get into that. But before we get into the premise of what this platform was about people like us sharing our stories in the, you know, the psychedelic entheogenic realms, I just want to get a bit of background on where you're from originally, you know what I'm saying, and how, you know, coming up in particular, and how I always tie it in is like just your relationship in engaging with psychedelics. Because for me growing up, I didn't get into psychedelics since I was in my adulthood, man. I was in my 30s and I first delved into these spaces and places. Because in my teenagers, right through to my 20s and mid 30s, psychedelics wasn't my thing, man. It wasn't our thing. It wasn't something that Black people dealt with, you know. So I'm curious to know how was, you know, what was your relationship with psychedelics as a youngster, or what was the premise of, you know, psychedelics in your community, in your household?
So okay, so that starts. I went to high school in right outside of Washington D.C., and that was a really good experience for me because in the States, and folks might not, fuck it, it's true to me. In the States, you have a wide swath of Black folks, but in certain pockets, you have really high educated or highly educated, like maybe better off than in other swaths of the country. And in Washington, D.C. is one of those. You have Howard University there. You have really robust Black middle class there. And so I went to a school that was, you know, it definitely, we didn't have metal detectors at our school. You know, it wasn't a bad school, it was a good school. So my father moved from one school district to the other one so that I could specifically go to that school. So it was good. I love music the same as you. Like, you see hyphae in my name. Everything with me is politics, music, plant medicine. And so at that time, I was in high school, Eminem was out and he was big. And to me, as pro-Black as I am, you got to give Eminem you got to take your hat off to his bars. Like, this man spits. And so there was a song that he made about mushrooms. I think it's called I'm Sorry. And I'm like, that sounds like something I want to do. And so from then on, I had an interest in mushrooms. So finally I got my hand on mushrooms and I did them. And I did them with two of my white friends. And because none of the Black guys that I was friends with at that time would even eat them. So I ate them with my two white friends. And when the next day after our experience, one of the white boys said, "Bro, how much for an eighth?" And I'm like, I don't know, how much is an eighth? And he told me, and I did the math for what I got them for, and I was getting them. I can't talk about how I was getting them, but I was getting them from a great source at a really good price. It was the things wrote itself basically, you know. And so I fueled high school doing that. I fueled a lot of college doing that, and then I eventually left college and went to Europe and lived between Switzerland, Holland, Switzerland and Holland. Yeah, lived between Switzerland and Holland, working for the biggest grower in the world. This was before the rules changed that didn't allow fruit bodies. So these people were actually selling truffles and mushrooms to the UK out of Holland. They tried to get them into a lot of different places when the laws in the EU, basically there was a big fight in the EU about what was fair trade amongst EU laws, because in Holland, the mushrooms were considered food. And I guess according to EU trade laws, if something's considered a food in one EU country, it has to be open for fair trade in another EU country. And so, you know, we're going to Italy trying to put them in stores. We're going to this place, that place. And we were having lukewarm success, but ultimately it wasn't really successful. Crazy shit happened, laws changed. And so I got out of mushrooms at that point because, I mean, there was nothing going on in the States at such a level that I was working at over there. There was no second step. There was nowhere else I could go. So came back to the States, jumped between cannabis and politics. And in New York, I moved to Brooklyn, New York, and I see the message to the Black man right behind you. I moved to Brooklyn, New York, and my work office was right across the street from the Muslim bookstore. So I'd say when I moved to New York, I was a Negro. Like, I knew that I supported Black people, but I was not centered. I was not thinking about it. I was not intentional. Working right across the street from that Muslim bookstore, listening to Elijah Muhammad or Louis Farrakhan or Nuri Muhammad, or listening to them every single, because they put the speakers out in front of the store and played them speakers like all day long. and so my mind started getting more pro-Black, and I started looking and identifying things. I happened to come across mushrooms in New York, and I did them. And this is where I start to notice mushrooms as ancient technology, but I didn't have anybody else around me saying that. I ate my mushrooms. I had my experience. I remember I laid down, I was listening to Jay Electronica, and that entire experience was beautiful, because if you listen to Jay Electronica and under a sizable dose, he makes the music for the plant medicine. I mean, one of his songs is called Diethyltryptamine. Like, he makes music for this stuff, and he takes you through portals with his music. And so I'm sitting there just enjoying my journey, and all of a sudden in front of me, I see Africa, and I see pyramids, and I see pharaohs, and they say, "Welcome home." They said, "Welcome back." And from that moment on, at the beginning of all of my journeys, I get that experience, welcome back. And when I connected with the people out here in Oakland, the Black community, when I first started meeting some of these Black people in the plant medicine space, I shared that with them. I'm like, yo, I feel like we can communicate with the ancestors through this. They were like, yeah, yes, you can. Like, I think the same thing. I feel the same thing. I know the same thing. And so I guess that shaped me viewing mushrooms as more than just a drug to a divine plant, and then how I get to where I'm at now. June 2019, Decriminalize Nature passed ordinance that made plant medicine decriminalized here in Oakland, which means if there's a person that's jaywalking across the street, the police gotta fuck with them before they fuck with me if I have my mushrooms. In theory, that's what it's supposed to mean. Right before this, something in my spirit said, take a trip around the world. And so I took a trip around the world. I visited some of my people in Holland, gathered up a whole bunch of liquid culture, spore prints, gathered up everything I could, somehow I got back home, and as soon as the legislation changed, I snapped into action and built out a lab and started basically my scientific research endeavors into the plant medicine. So that's my life in terms. That's a Cliff's Notes version of my life in plant medicine.
All right, we're going to stay there, but we're still going to go back again still. So how long have you been in Oakland? So did you make the move to Oakland based upon the decriminalization, or was you there before? What was the deal?
So, I moved to Oakland from Brooklyn, New York. I've been here since 2013,
right.
2014. I moved because in New York, I was working for the New York State Democrats. I was running a congressional election in Staten Island. That's where Eric Garner was murdered, the year that Eric Garner was murdered. And I remember being on a conference call with the highest level Democrats at the time. It was the leader of the National Democratic Party and the leader of the New York State Democrat Party on the line. And, it was my job to because I told you I was oriented toward the people, even if I had to tap dance. So it was my job to go organize the black part of town. These white boys had no idea how to talk to us. And really, when I tell people, like, they say, well, if I can sell my soul to work for those people, I can do a lot of things. That's all I'll say. So I went, and Eric Garner was just murdered. Al Sharpton is saying he's going to march on the Verrazano Bridge. And I'm asking these high level officials, like, so what's the message I give to the North Shore? What do I tell my people that the Democrats want to do about the murder, this murder on video? And these white folks looked at me and said, we don't have a position. We don't have a position, so don't tell them nothing. I remember I called my mother up and I'm like, Mom, I can't do this. Like, they just killed this dude on video, and these people, they're not even gonna take a position on it. They're supposed to be our people, and I'm supposed to get my people to vote. I can't do it. I was like, I'm gonna quit. My mom said, can you afford to quit? I said, nah, I can't afford to quit. So she was like, you finish what you started, and then you remember this. So I finished the contract and never worked for the Democrat Party again, at least not directly. I left that, but what that rolled me into was working with Eric Garner's daughter. And so I was doing that, but still looking for work. I just so happened to find the perfect job for me, which was the job in Oakland, organizing Black community with Black people, with Black bosses, with a Black agenda. Like it was called Black Organizing Project. My boss, and during the interview coming to Oakland, my boss asked me, they were like, so what do you think about, religion? We like to make sure that we keep Christianity centered and we like to say prayers. And my answer to her in my job interview was, I got my religion from the same place I got my last name. So there's that. And I didn't think I was gonna get the job, but I got the job. And so, yeah, that's what brought me to Oakland. So and even now what I'm doing is still organizing. I'm just organizing the mycology space,
Got you.